Hi, very glad to see you on the channel. Before you start listening to the story, write in the comments whether you like the voice on the video. I'd only been gone 5 days. Just a mid-season coaching retreat, nothing fancy. I wasn't even supposed to go originally, but when our school's athletic director got the flu, I stepped in. It was a mix of clinics, networking, and watching high school kids pretend they were already signed with the Yankees. I didn't miss home much during those 5 days, until the drive back, when the autumn trees lining the New Hampshire back roads reminded me of everything I used to love about my life. Tiffany didn't pick up when I texted that I was coming home a day early. Figured she was at school. She was always at the school lately. PTA events, committee meetings, student drives. If the building had a bulletin board, Tiffany was stapling something to it. She lived for it, said it gave her purpose. And as much as I teased her for being the queen of suburban volunteerism, I admire the energy. At least I used to. While I walked through the front door, the first thing I noticed was the silence. No music playing, no shoes in the hallway. Everything was tidy, just not the kind of tidy that comes from cleaning. The kind that comes from covering your tracks. The living room smelled faintly like something floral, but it wasn't her usual candle. A new scent, sharper, something I hadn't smelled in our house before. I tossed my bag near the coat rack and wandered into the kitchen. The fridge was a little emptier than it should have been. The leftover chicken stir-fry I'd made earlier in the week was gone, which was fine, until I saw the takeout bag tucked behind a pile of grocery receipts. I pulled it out. Thai Palace, a place I didn't even know she liked. 2 sets of chopsticks. No name on the receipt, but enough to make me pause. Her phone was on the counter, locked of course. Nothing new there. But now the screen required a passcode. That was new. Tiffany never locked her phone before. She always said, "What do I have to hide?" I guess now I had to ask the question for her. She came home an hour later, surprised to see me, then quickly recovered. "Wow," she said, kissing me on the cheek. "You're back early. Figured I'd surprise you." She smiled big, maybe too big. "I missed you. I was just at school helping set up for next week's book fair." I nodded. "Busy week." "The busiest," she said quickly. "It's like I live there now." Something in the way she said it stuck with me. The way her eyes didn't linger on mine. The way she walked past me without asking how my trip went. The way she dropped her bag in the hallway, then moved it a moment later, like she remembered something important was still inside it. I didn't ask questions. Not yet. That night, she curled up beside me in bed like everything was normal. Like we hadn't just become strangers playing house. But my eyes stayed open long after hers closed. And in the dark, something started whispering. Something's off. I didn't know who, or what, or when. But I knew this wasn't just about school events anymore. It started with a sweater. 2 days after I got home, Tiffany left early for another planning session at school. Said she'd be gone through dinner. I nodded, didn't ask who else would be there. I waited until her taillights disappeared, then made coffee and opened the window above the sink. The morning air felt cleaner than usual, or maybe I was just seeing things differently now. You start to feel like a guest in your own life when everything seems fine, but none of it feels right. I went to the laundry room to find a rag, some small excuse to busy my hands, and noticed a plastic bag on the counter. It was from a boutique I didn't recognize, the tag still dangling from the handle. I figured maybe she'd picked up something new, something for the next PTA meeting or school event. That wouldn't have surprised me. But when I peeked inside, what I found didn't fit the image she always presented so perfectly. Folded neatly inside was a navy quarter-zip sweater, men's size large, still with the price tag on it. Not my brand, not my size. Beneath, it was a card in a small white envelope. I pulled it out, fingers already tensing. The handwriting wasn't hers. It was careful, but unfamiliar. Inside the card, 3 words were written: "Thanks for everything." That's all. No name, no signature, just a single gift and a vague message, tucked into the laundry room like an afterthought. I stared at it for a long time. My first thought was maybe it was a gift for someone else, her brother, maybe, or one of the teachers she worked with. But Tiffany never bought clothes for anyone outside the family, especially not something that cost north of $100, judging by the tag. She wasn't careless with money unless there was something emotional behind it. I set the card down and stared at the sweater. Not only was it not for me, it was hidden, not wrapped, not presented. It was tucked away like something waiting for the right moment to disappear. That moment wasn't going to come. I wasn't proud of what I did next, but I did it anyway. I took the sweater out of the bag, opened the cardigan, then slid the whole thing back inside. Then I carried it downstairs to my workshop and set it on the bench. I opened my toolbox, pulled out a small packet of glitter, the kind we used to prank each other with during game days, and dumped the entire thing into the folds of the sweater. A fine layer of sparkly green dust settled into the fabric. Invisible at first, but guaranteed to spread. I folded it back the way I found it, card and all, and returned it to the bag. Then I placed the bag back in the laundry room like nothing happened. When she came home that evening, she acted like her usual self, gave me a tired smile, said she was beat, and asked if I could handle dinner. Of course, I said. Long day. She exhaled and dropped onto the couch. I swear, planning a school dance should count as a full-time job. Glad someone appreciates your hard work, I said. She looked over at me, blinking. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, I said, turning back to the stove. Just saying. You put in more time than the teachers do. She laughed awkwardly. That's because I care. Yeah, I said quietly. You definitely care. Later that night, I watched her carry laundry to the bedroom. The boutique bag was gone from the counter. I heard the rustle of plastic upstairs, followed by the soft creak of the closet door. She didn't mention the sweater. Didn't bring it up once. I didn't either. But 2 days later, I noticed specks of green glitter on the collar of a man's jacket at the school when I dropped off equipment. The jacket was hanging on a chair in the principal's office. And Mr. Clark, our new principal, was wearing a navy quarter zip. Same brand, same shade, same size. He didn't see me. He was on the phone, laughing quietly, back turned. I didn't say a word, just walked out and started watching more closely. It's strange how fast a sweater can rot your peace of mind. Every time I closed my eyes, that navy collar flickered behind my eyelids, sparkled even like the glitter I'd buried in it was mocking me from a distance. Mr. Clark wore it like a second skin now. I passed him twice in the school hallway that week, once during an early morning meeting, once when I was dropping off equipment, and both times he had it on. No glitter visible yet, but I knew it was there, lurking in the seams, waiting for sunlight or a quick pat on the back to shake loose the trail. Tiffany, meanwhile, hadn't said a word. Not about the sweater, the bag, the card. Nothing. She was quieter lately, more glued to her phone. That was the second change I noticed. She'd always been a scroller, sure, but this was different. She kept it face down on the counter, locked with a code now. No more open notifications. No more casual glances mid-conversation. I asked her once if something was going on at school. She smiled, leaned over, and kissed my cheek. Just too many group chats, she said. Planning stuff. You know how it is. I did. But the thing was, Tiffany never used to hide from group chats. She loved buzzing in and out of PDA threads, gossiping about the latest bake sale drama, laughing at the typos in the event flyers. But now she moved with her phone like it was a live wire, like any vibration might give something away. One evening, after she fell asleep on the couch, I took a risk. Her phone was on the coffee table, still locked, but her tablet, that was still synced to her calendar. I tapped it open, pretending to scroll through weather updates, then swiped over to her week schedule. Everything was blocked. No details. No event names. Just long gray rectangles marked busy. Some ran past midnight. That was new. I didn't say anything. I just closed the app and started planning. The next day, I walked into the school's admin wing after hours. My job as coach got me access most in question. I knocked lightly on the faculty lounge door before stepping in. Mr. Clark was inside, packing up paperwork. He looked up and smiled like we were old friends. Ben, he said, what brings you in this late? I held up a clipboard. Had to grab rosters for the off-season workouts. Thought I'd print him before morning. He nodded, turned back to his bag. Long day for both of us. Looks like it. I stepped closer. Noticed something on the armrest of his chair. A folded note. Familiar handwriting. I didn't read it. Just let my eyes skim the curve of the T on the edge of the visible line. A heart was drawn beneath it. He stuffed it into his folder without realizing I'd seen it. Hey, he said casually. Tiffany's been a huge help lately. Just wanted to say, you've got a great wife. I smiled. Yeah, she's a force. He nodded like we'd both agreed on something meaningful. I walked out and didn't look back. Later that night, I went down to the basement and pulled out the lockbox I hadn't touched since before our wedding. It had our old camcorder in it, dusty but functional. I checked the battery, charged it, and tested the angle. 2 hours later, I installed a small motion-activated camera in the corner of our guest room, just tucked far enough into the vent grill to stay invisible. Why the guest room? Because that's where she took all her school calls lately. Said the bedroom was too echoey. I gave it one night. Just one. She went in after dinner, closed the door behind her, and stayed in there for 45 minutes. The next morning, I checked the footage. She never opened her laptop. She never held a meeting. But she did take out her phone, set it up against the lamp, and smile like someone was watching. Then she spoke. Softly. Laughing. I couldn't hear the audio, no mic, but I didn't need to. Her expressions were enough. This wasn't PDA business. This wasn't schoolwork. It was performance. Private. Intimate. I deleted the footage. Not because I couldn't watch it again, but because I didn't want to see more than I already knew. That day, she left a wrapped box on the dining room table. I found this for Clark, she said. He's doing a great job with the school. Figured a thank you wouldn't hurt. I stared at the box. Small. Precise. Classy, I said. She smiled. You think? I nodded, then waited until she left the room. I peeled the tape from the bottom, slid the edge open, and replaced the pin inside with a broken one I'd covered in clear nail polish, just enough to gum the inside of the cap. It would leak eventually. Maybe ruin his shirt pocket. Just enough to annoy. Just enough to know. That night, I kissed her on the forehead and told her good night. She squeezed my hand, and I watched the glitter trail she didn't see, still clinging faintly to her wrist. The problem with suspicion is that it never lets you rest. Every glance becomes a puzzle. Every smile feels staged. You start to read meaning in the pause between words, the way a phone is tilted, the choice to take a call in another room. And every silence becomes evidence, proof of something you can't yet name, but feel crawling under your skin. I wasn't eating much, wasn't sleeping either, but I watched closely. Tiffany became more controlled. Her outfits were more deliberate. Her phone never left her hand. And yet, she was oddly cheerful. She kissed me goodbye every morning, hummed while making breakfast, asked how practices were going as if we were back to being the couple everyone thought we were. But underneath it all, there was something distant in her eyes, like she was already living in another room of her mind, one I didn't have a key to anymore. That's when I made my first mistake. Her schedule showed she had a late planning meeting on Thursday. I pretended I had a night practice with the JV team. Instead, I left early, parked 2 blocks from the school, and waited. Sure enough, around 6, Tiffany's car pulled into the faculty lot. 10 minutes later, Mr. Clark's SUV arrived. My pulse quickened. I watched them from the shadows near the back fence. The building lights cast long shadows across the gym's brick wall. For 30 minutes, nothing happened. Just light in the main office and the occasional shadow moving across the blinds. I couldn't see clearly, but I waited. And when the door finally opened, it wasn't what I expected. Tiffany stepped out, alone. She looked annoyed, pacing. Then Mr. Clark followed. He was holding papers, shaking his head. She said something fast and sharp. He raised his hands like he was deflecting blame. She turned away, headed for her car, and slammed the door harder than necessary. I ducked before she could see me. She drove off a minute later. Clark stayed behind. I followed her home. She didn't see me. That night, I tried to act normal. She barely spoke, just sat at the table, pushing salad around her plate. Eventually, I broke. What happened at school? She looked up. What do you mean? You looked upset when you left. She stiffened. You were there. I had a feeling. She narrowed her eyes. Were you spying on me? I was looking for the truth. Her voice dropped to a dangerous calm. I was helping Clark prep for the board meeting. He forgot half the forms and blamed me for not emailing them. I wasn't mad. I was frustrated. Because you're so close now? I asked. She set her fork down. He's the principal, Ben. It's my job to work with him. Right. PDA queen. Excuse me. I leaned in. Tell me again why your calendar is locked. Why your phone is suddenly off limits. Why there's a men's sweater in our laundry room. She stood up slowly. That sweater was a donation from the school fundraiser. I brought it home by mistake. I told you that. No, you didn't. Her jaw tightened. Maybe I didn't think I needed to explain every move I make. I volunteer more than full-time hours, Ben. I plan everything while you're off yelling at umpires and drawing plays. This isn't about my job, isn't it? Maybe if you noticed how hard I've worked, how many nights I've held everything together, you wouldn't be acting like a paranoid security guard. I stared at her, heart pounding. She stared back, eyes flashing with something I couldn't read. Then she walked out of the room. I sat there for a long time. I checked the footage later that night. I'd set a new camera near the mudroom, another blind spot. That night, she'd only used it to take off her shoes. No calls, no texts, no quiet laughs with the phone propped against the lamp. And for a moment, doubt crept in. Maybe I'd gone too far. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe the glitter on the sweater meant nothing. But then, 2 days later, I saw a photo on Clark's social media. It was a group shot from the school dance. Staff and PTA members, arms around each other. Clark in the middle. Tiffany just to his right. And on his collar, a small, green shimmer. The photo stayed with me like a mosquito bite in the back of my mind. Small, but impossible to ignore. I checked it 3 times that night, zooming in further each time, staring at the shimmer on Clark's collar. It could have been camera flash. It could have been glare. But it wasn't. It was glitter. The exact same shade I dumped into that sweater days ago. That was no coincidence. The jacket had been worn, returned, and worn again, and my signature had traveled with it. Still, I had no hard proof, and every time I got too close to asking the questions burning in my gut, Tiffany pivoted. She was good at that. The next week brought a new layer of weird. Tiffany claimed she needed her own schedule space and started keeping a printed planner instead of the shared calendar we'd used since our second year of marriage. She said the app kept glitching and deleting events. Technology's a mess, she added with a quick smile. It's easier this way. I nodded, said nothing, but I watched as she kept that planner in her purse at all times, never left it open, and never once asked me if I had a game, a staff meeting, anything. It wasn't a plan for us. It was to hide something from me. On Wednesday afternoon, I came home from practice earlier than usual. She wasn't expecting me. I knew this because her car wasn't in the driveway, yet her gym shoes were by the door. I also knew because the house didn't sound lived in. No TV, no music, but the faintest scent of her perfume, soft and expensive, hung fresh in the hallway. I moved through the house carefully, as if I was trespassing. In a way, I was. I wasn't walking through our home anymore. I was walking through her set, her version of the truth. And every room told a different version of a lie. Her purse was in the kitchen. She must have come home and changed before leaving again. I opened the front pocket and found the planner tucked inside. I hesitated. This wasn't like reading her texts. This was different. Something about paper made it feel more personal, more intimate. But I opened it anyway. The pages were covered in colored ink, little hearts and arrows connecting boxes. It looked like a teenage diary, not a PDA calendar. But what caught my eye wasn't the designs. It was the recurring set of letters that appeared next to her Friday entries. SC. Sometimes with a time, sometimes with a little star. SC. Not school committee. Not student council. Not anything real. I flipped back 3 pages and found a full-day event. SC. 10:30 to 4. Prep clear. No notes. No location. Just initials. I snapped a photo, closed the planner, and stepped away just as the front door opened. She walked in wearing a hoodie that wasn't hers, definitely not mine. The sleeves were too long, and it had a logo from a sports bar 3 towns over. Her hair was damp, like she'd been to a spa or gym, but her eyes, wide, momentarily startled, told me she didn't expect to see me. "Hey," she said, forcing a smile. "You're back early." "Yeah," I said. "Practice got rained out." She nodded quickly. "I was just out running errands." Wearing someone else's hoodie. She froze, then looked down like she just noticed it. "Oh, no, it's Jess's. We were sorting through lost and found stuff at the school. I borrowed it. Jess doesn't wear men's XL." She laughed a little too fast. "It's probably her husband's." She had it in the pile and said I looked cold. I stared at her for a moment. She stared back, waiting for me to say something else. Eventually, she asked, "What?" "Nothing," I said. "Glad you stayed warm." That night, she took a shower, then went to bed early. I stayed in the living room, phone in hand, searching for that sports bar. It was real, open late, had a private back parking lot, less than 10 minutes from Clark's apartment. The next morning, her planner had a new entry, SC, 11 a.m., full check. I didn't ask, but I knew, and this time, I was going to follow her. Friday morning arrived sharp and gray. The sky hung low, thick with mist, as if the town itself wanted to keep secrets that day. Tiffany moved around the house like a cloud, quiet, purposeful, untouchable. She kissed my cheek before she left, dressed in jeans and a PDA-branded fleece, hair pulled back in a braid, eyes bright and unreadable. "Wish me luck," she said. "We've got so much to prep for the upcoming fundraiser." I nodded. "Good luck." She left exactly at 10:35. I waited 5 minutes, grabbed my keys, and followed. She didn't drive to the school. She didn't drive anywhere near it. Instead, she took the long curve out of town, past the usual turnoff, and headed straight for a 2-star motel just off the highway. The kind of place with a sagging sign, half-lit vacancy light, and a reputation that wasn't written on Yelp but whispered through locals with raised eyebrows. She pulled into the back lot and parked. Another car was already there. Dark gray SUV. Clark's. She stepped out her car, looked around once, not in panic, just habit, then walked briskly across the lot. She didn't knock on any doors. She went straight to room 207. The door opened before she reached it. A man's hand reached out, touched her back, guided her in. The door closed. I sat there for a long time. Nothing dramatic happened. No slamming, no laughter through the thin motel walls. Just silence, and a feeling in my chest like I'd swallowed something jagged and hot. It wasn't shock. I'd already accepted what this was, but seeing it confirmed felt like watching a car crash in slow motion that I couldn't look away from. I didn't go to the room. I didn't knock or confront or shout. Instead, I took out my phone, snapped 3 photos of her car next to Clark's, then zoomed in on the motel room number. I uploaded them to a locked folder and closed the app. This wasn't about catching her anymore. It was about what came next. An hour later, the door opened. She stepped out first, hair a little messy, jacket back on, phone in hand. Clark followed, laughing at something she said. They didn't kiss. They didn't touch. But they stood close, too close. He leaned in, said something into her ear. She swatted at him playfully and walked to her car. He watched her drive off, then went back inside alone. I waited 10 minutes before driving away. I didn't want to get caught. I wanted her to believe she was still safe in the lie. When I got home, she was already there, curled up on the couch with her planner open and a cup of tea in her hands. She smiled when I walked in. "How was practice?" she asked. "Canceled," I said. She nodded. "Rain." Something like that. She closed the planner and stood up to hug me. Her arms wrapped around me like everything was still whole. I let them. I hugged her back. And in that moment, I felt something go still in my chest. Not anger. Not even sadness. Just silence. That kind you feel after the final page of a book you never really wanted to finish. That night, I laid in bed staring at the ceiling while she slept beside me. The rain started sometime around midnight, tapping soft rhythms against the windows. She turned in her sleep and muttered something I couldn't make out. I stared at the ceiling and made my decision. It was time to stop waiting. Time to stop wondering. Time to take everything she'd hidden and put it exactly where it belonged. Right in front of her. The next few days were a masterclass in calm. I made coffee like normal. Took out the trash. Went to work. Texted her midday just to say hey. I smiled when she spoke. I nodded when she told stories. I even laughed at the ones that weren't funny. Every action, every word was carefully measured. Because I wanted her to believe I still lived in the lie with her. Because I needed her to feel secure right before the floor vanished beneath her. I didn't need guesses anymore. I didn't need late-night doubts or blurry screenshots. I had dates, I had times, I had photos. The only thing I didn't have was her saying it aloud. And I didn't want it in an argument. I didn't want it in some sobbing apology. I wanted it buried in her actions, undeniable, silent, like ink bleeding through paper. On Thursday morning, Tiffany told me she had another planning session at school after hours. We're working on the final raffle details, she said while packing her bag. Clark wants it to be perfect. He's being weirdly hands-on. I smiled. Must be the pressure. She laughed. He's intense but good. You'd like him if you actually talked to him. I nodded. Maybe I will. She kissed me on the cheek, then left. I waited 10 minutes, then left through the back. This time, I didn't park far away. I pulled into the lot beside the school gym, angled just out of sight of the main building. From my spot, I could see the faculty entrance. I waited, engine off, lights down. At 6:12 p.m., she arrived. Parked at her usual spot. Entered with her tote bag and coffee. A minute later, Clark's SUV rolled in. He didn't park out front. He pulled around back, near the custodial entrance. Interesting. They weren't even pretending anymore. I exited my car and circled the building, sticking close to the hedges until I reached the side door near the art room. It was locked, but the office window a few feet away had been left cracked open, just enough to hear faint voices. I waited. Inside, her laugh broke through. Then his voice, low and closer than it should have been. Another laugh. A pause. Shuffling. And then nothing. No chairs moving. No papers rustling. Just silence. I didn't need to see them. I'd seen enough. Instead, I walked back to the parking lot, popped my trunk, and retrieved the last item I'd prepared that morning. A padded envelope with printed photos, stamped with the date, location, time. Her car beside his. Room 207. A copy of her planner page that I'd scanned. And a short typed note. Looks like your SC meetings are going well. Just wanted to help you remember where you've been, in case you forget where you are. I slid it into her tote bag in the passenger seat. Carefully, quietly. Then I left. When I got home, I cooked dinner. Set the table. Poured wine. She came in just before 9 p.m., flushed and breathless like she'd been rushing. Long meeting, she said. Clark can't make up his mind about anything. Sounds like a lot, I said, placing a plate in front of her. She smiled. You're amazing. Seriously, I don't deserve you. I raised a glass. To honesty, I said. She clinked hers without blinking. Halfway through the meal, she froze. I watched her expression shift, just a blink, just a breath. She reached in her bag, fingers fumbling inside. She paused, then slowly pulled out the envelope. What's this? She asked. No idea, I said. You tell me. She didn't open it at the table. She excused herself and went to the bedroom. 5 minutes later, she came back. Pale, shaking. She sat down without a word. Do you want to talk about it? I asked. She shook her head. Okay. And that was all. Because there was nothing left to say. Just one chapter left. The one where I returned the favor. Tiffany didn't speak about the envelope again. Not the next morning. Not that evening. Not even when I asked if she had any plans for the weekend. She said just school stuff and smiled like her hands weren't still trembling when she held her coffee mug. That envelope was a scalpel, not designed to cause pain, just precision. She knew I knew, and she knew I wasn't going to scream or sob or fall to pieces in front of her. That terrified her more than anything. That Sunday, I got a message from Jess. It was simple. Still heading to the cabin next weekend? Mandy's in. I responded, I'll be there. Got something special planned. The cabin wasn't mine, but had been in the district for years, a rustic lodge used for wellness retreats and weekend faculty bonding. Every year someone booked it, filled it with teachers pretending to be relaxed while still competing over who was the most dedicated. This time, it was my name on the reservation. I told Tiffany I'd be gone for the weekend. Coaching seminar up north. No cell signal, no interruptions. She nodded like it meant she could relax too. Her SC note in the planner was marked for Saturday, circled in red. Friday night, I drove up with Jess and Mandy. We'd spent enough time around each other to know the rules. No expectations, no drama. Jess was sharp, unfiltered. Mandy, quick-witted and calm. Tiffany hated both of them. So they were too flirty, too loud, too casual with their compliments. That always stuck with me. The women she couldn't tolerate were the same ones who never pretended to be anything they weren't. Saturday morning, I went into town and printed 3 color photos. Clark and Tiffany at the motel, the back lot, her car beside his. I tucked them into the PDA suggestion box with a typed note. For future planning, perhaps the art supply closet should have a better lock. That evening, I returned to the cabin. We opened wine, laughed, played old board games we found in the back closet. Jess found a Bluetooth speaker and played music. Mandy made a fire. At one point, Jess grabbed my phone and started flipping through photos. I didn't stop her. She found one of the glitter-specked sweater folded in the laundry room, time-stamped. She raised an eyebrow. "Oh wow," she said. "You really planned this." I smiled. "Didn't I mention? I've had time." Sunday night, the PDA had their quarterly meeting. I came straight from the cabin. I wore a clean button-up, slacks. Walked in with Jess on one arm, Mandy on the other. Tiffany was already inside, seated beside Clark, whispering something too low for anyone to hear. She turned at the sound of laughter, ours, and her face dropped. The room quieted. I walked straight to the front, let Jess and Mandy slide into the empty chairs beside me. I pulled out my phone, showed them something on the screen, and laughed. Loud, deliberate. Clark looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. Tiffany's eyes didn't leave me. I stood, casually, like I'd just remembered something. "Oh," I said, my voice easy and loud enough to carry. "Tiff, Mr. Clark sends his regards. Said the supply closet still smells like your perfume." The room fell completely still. Someone coughed. Someone else dropped a pen. Tiffany's mouth parted slightly, but no sound came out. She stood too fast, knocking over her chair, and bolted for the hallway. Clark followed half a second later. He didn't return. The next morning, he submitted his resignation. By Wednesday, Tiffany had deleted her social accounts. Friday, the school board promoted me to interim athletic director. Jess baked a cake to celebrate. It read, "For future planning." The days after the PDA meeting moved slowly, like everything around me was adjusting to a new temperature. The silence in our house wasn't the same kind of silence it used to be. It wasn't loaded with suspicion or denial anymore. It was relief and vacancy. Tiffany avoided me for 2 days straight. No texts, no questions. Her planner was gone from the counter. Her phone lived in her hand again, but this time she didn't even pretend to scroll. She just clutched it like a lifeline. When Friday came, she finally broke. I came home from practice to find her sitting at the kitchen table. Her eyes were puffy, her makeup uneven. In front of her was a small stack of old photographs. Our wedding day, a beach trip from 3 years ago, a crumpled photo booth strip from State Fair. She looked up when I stepped in. "I wanted to talk," she said quietly. I walked past her and set my keys on the hook. "I figured you would." "I made a mistake," she said, her voice catching. "One I can't believe I let happen." I raised an eyebrow. "One or many?" She closed her eyes like that physically hurt. "I didn't mean to hurt you. You didn't trip and fall into the supply closet, Tiffany. You made decisions. Over and over again. You made a plan." She stood up, suddenly animated, pacing. "I was lonely, Ben. You were always at practice, always at school. You barely saw me anymore." "You mean while you were at your SC meetings?" I said, crossing my arms. "That's not fair," she snapped. "You don't understand what it's like to feel invisible in your own house." I nodded slowly. "Funny. I was going to say the same thing." She stopped pacing. "So what now? You just walk away? After everything?" "There's nothing left to walk away from," I said. "You burned a bridge while smiling back at me." Tears spilled freely now. "We built a life, Ben." "No. Y correcta. I built a life. You rented a role in it. And when the mask got heavy, you traded it for someone else's hands in the dark." She stepped closer, desperate now. "You think Jess and Mandy are going to make you happy? You think parading them in front of everyone makes you stronger? It makes you cruel." "No," I said calmly. "It makes me honest." Her voice dropped. "You're really not going to forgive me. I forgave you when I still thought it was a mistake. Back when I wanted it to be a misunderstanding. I don't anymore. Now I just want distance." She flinched. "So that's it? No fixing it?" I sighed. "Fixing what, Tiffany? The illusion? The curated marriage you posted about but never lived? You weren't looking for partnership. You were looking for attention." She didn't respond. Just stood there, breathing hard, tears clinging to her lashes. "I'll be moving out this weekend," I said, grabbing a bottle of water from the fridge. "The school's helping me with short-term housing. After that, we'll talk logistics." "You're leaving me?" she whispered. "No," I said, walking past her. "You left first. I just beat you to the door." She collapsed into the chair again, sobbing now, head in her hands. I paused at the doorway, watching the person I once thought I knew unravel beneath the weight of her own choices. There was no satisfaction in it, just closure. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't need to. I had already left the moment she handed her loyalty to another man and thought I'd never notice. Thank you for listening to the end. I hope you enjoyed it very much. Don't forget to give a like and tell us in the comments what you would do in such a situation.